Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at how the US E-minis unfolded yesterday, which was Tuesday, January the 31st, last day in January. But before we look at any charts, I'd like to start with our risk disclaimer and just remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, so they're only just shown for illustration and training purposes. Also remind you all that there's risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know that losses can and will and do happen. And we'll be looking at a few losing trades in the video as well. Also, all trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, let's now have a look at some charts. Today I'm using NinjaTrader 8 and our MTP RT add-ons for NinjaTrader 8. So let's have a look at how the ES unfolded yesterday. Well, quite frankly, it was quite a good day actually. It was a lot better than I expected. We did a training webinar with MTPredictor customers yesterday, and I was anticipating the market was just going to chop sideways, particularly after we had such a sharp fall, particularly on the 24-hour session the day before. But amazingly enough, we actually got a very strong rally here later in the day, and you can see just before the strong rally unfolded, we had a TS3 buy setup, which is actually a Holy Grail trade setup, which was on a blue MTP trend. If I place the analysis on this last blue buy bar, you can see this caught the rally nicely. But let's start at the beginning of the day. So let's have a look at all the automatic setups that unfolded yesterday. Remember, we use our MTP trend color-coded indicator for the large degree trend. So as the market was declining down here, we came into a DP buy setup here, which was either on blue stroke black. It's probably on black at the time. In other words, was indicating that the market was in an area where a reversal was likely to happen, or was possibly could happen. So this was a good one to take. It was also a lovely VS buy setup. Can you see the high volume spike there on the volume? In other words, this bar here went down through the previous low. In fact, through quite a few other previous lows here, you can see. In fact, actually, if I place the DP off that previous low there, you can see this gave us major support. We'd actually nailed the low of the day absolutely perfectly. But the point being, let's clear this all off, is that there was a high volume spike going down there. The market then reversed back up, indicating that professionals were now entering the market and a rally was likely. And that's exactly what happened. So let's place the analysis on this first trade. The market went up, went all very, very close to it here, came all the way back down, then went back up again and hit the DP area at that level there. The market was just about going strong at that level, and maybe you could have could then have trailed with the ATR stop and gone right up onto the close. But let's take a slightly worst case scenario. Let's assume that you were within a tick or so here, and you may have said, right, okay, I want to now trail at the 1 bar lows. This is an option we have in our MTPredictor trade module, which is an add-on for our NinjaTrader add-ons. You can actually, when you're in a trade, you can then decide to basically trail at the bar lows. In other words, one tick below the bar lows. Just take that off again. So when you got up to here, you could be trailing just one tick below the bar lows because you're really close to the target, and you may well have banked 2.1 R. So that might be a more realistic trade management there. Market came down. There was a trade here. If we place the analysis on, this was a TS3 buy setup. You would have been just clipped in there, come back down and stopped out. So this is a good example of a losing trade. Why are losing trades okay? Well, because we use correct position sizing. In this case, we're risking less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. By the way, you can actually have whatever size and whatever currency you wish. So here on a euro account, all the position sizing is done in euros. Let's go back to our default account, which is a sample $20,000 account. So this would have been a -1 R loss, or a 1 risk unit loss. Remember our prior profit? Potentially 2 R profit. Comes in here for another buy setup on this blue buy bar here. This is a Holy Grail trade setup. In other words, this was assuming that this was a wave 2, because we were coming off a major low, initial move up, wave 1, initial correction, wave 2, then we're looking for a strong wave 3, and if I actually just clear that all off and put on our major Elliott waves, you can see that's what it was, 1, 2, wave 3. I'll just clear that off. So the point being is that market goes up to the first target there where the profit was 4.9. Can I call that 5? In other words, approximately 5 times greater than the initial risk. Remember that losing trade there was -1. So that's the trick with MTPredictor, is when the losses come through, the losses are kept small, in this case -1 or -1 risk unit. When the profits come through, the profits are large. In this case, a lovely big move there where the profit was plus 4.9 or plus 5 or 5 times the initial risk or the loss that happened earlier. So a very, very nice trade there indeed. Let's go over to, I'm going to have a look at the YM next because that wasn't quite so good. There was a trade setup here that was a VS trade setup, but we shouldn't really be looking at VS setups just after the open because obviously the volume is naturally high just after the open, so you'd have ignored that. We had a VS buy setup here, but this was on a red MTP trend. You then had 2 trade setups here. The first one, again, would have been a losing trade, just clipped in, just clipped out, -1R loss. Then we had another trade set up here, caught that high with a red MTP trend down to the first target for plus 3.4R. Do you see why keeping the losses small is good? Because the losing trade would be -1, the profitable trade will be plus 3.4. There was also another trade here that would have just clipped you in, just clipped you out, -1. Very, very frustrating that you would have just been clipped out of that low. And then there would have been another trade here on a black MTP trend for again a -1. So the YM would have been pretty flat where you had 1, 2, 3 losing trades for -3R and then a plus 3.4R trade, you'd have been plus 0.4R profit overall. So even though you had 3 losing trades and 1 profitable trade, you still made money. But that wasn't the best one. The best E-mini yesterday, and this is why it's important to follow all of the US E-minis, was on the NQ. Why did I like this? Well, I'm going to take that major DP off because I want to show you that in a minute. Is here we had there's a VS setup there, again just after the open. As I said with the YM, you wouldn't be taking that because it's just after the open. We had a TS1 buy setup that we were actually looking at in our webinar yesterday, and this would have eventually been stopped out for a -1R loss. Remember, losing trades can and will and do happen. We then had a DP sell on a black MTP trend. That came down to the first target there for a nice plus 2.3R profit. But the one I liked was this VS setup here. If I place the analysis on, another 3.3R profit. But when the market got up to the first target, can you see how we just exceeded our strength band? In other words, this little grey band here on the MTP trend had been exceeded by the MTP trend indicator itself. That was indicating the market was strong and therefore likely to run a bit further. Therefore, rather than coming out at the first target, we use our ATR stop, which is our blue dots here, to run the trade, and that means you'd have held the trade right up into the close there for an approximately 11R profit. So an absolutely massive trade there on the NQ. Why did I like this one in particular? Because if you go out to the higher time frame chart, which is what I like to do, we place our DP off the prior swing pivot low. Now the higher time frame is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So as you're on a 3-minute chart, the higher time frame would be in 15 minutes. If you're on, say, a 15-minute Forex, the higher time frame would be an hourly. If you're, say, trading daily stocks, the higher time frame would be the weekly. But can you see how that nailed, that nailed the very low of the day for you. Came in very nicely, had an automatic DP buy setup as well. So when you come down to the 3-minute chart, the large view trend was now clearly up. So the more experienced users among you would probably be slightly wary about that DP sell, but would be happy to take that VS long and then ride it a bit further because the larger degree trend was up. So a very nice trade setup there in the direction of the large degree trend for potentially 11R or profit of 11 times the initial risk. Coming back to the ES, the only thing that I didn't quite like about the ES was if you go to the 15-minute chart and place our DPs on. There was one off there. That's the one I was working off on our webinar yesterday. You can see that it came in nicely at that DP. We also had another DP excuse me down here but it didn't quite reach. But it did actually come in at that DP support level. This was the support level that I was actually talking about. Just take that lower one off. This was the DP support level that I was talking about in our training webinar yesterday, and I was looking at potential support coming in here and saying, was this potentially going to be the low of the day? Well, it went up, came back down again, went slightly below it, snapped back again. So this is why it's important to keep these on the chart. And just because it didn't make it at the first attempt, it did at the second. And as you can see, this now caught the low of the day, so therefore the large blue trend was up again, and also gave you confidence that because this reversal was coming in at 15-minute support, I'll just go back to the 15-minute chart there again. This actually looked better than I thought it did. Nice support there at the 15-minute chart. Therefore, you were happy that the large blue trend was up. Large blue trend was up. You were happy to take this Holy Grail trade set up here. Remember, there was a losing trade first. There was a -1 hour loss first, and then you got into the profitable trade for a plus 4.9, or can I call it 5-hour profit. So overall, a very good day yesterday with a nice Holy Grail long trade setup on the ES, with us catching the low of the day with our 15-minute DP support. As we've seen, the YM wasn't quite so good, but of course if we go to the higher time frame chart, you can see we're actually below. Whoops, I'll put that DP on. We're actually below the DP support zone. So any buy setups coming in on the YM weren't quite so good. So you may be not wanting to take that buy setup and perhaps looking to only take the short. But also the best one, I think, was the NQ, because the support zone here came in absolutely beautifully to nail the low, and as such large blue trend was up, and that was a very nice VS buy setup there for a very nice profitable trade. So all in all, a very good day on the NQ and ES yesterday for MTPredictor, and it's amazing how markets change, because as I said, when I was looking at this earlier in the day with our customers and our MTPredictor trading room, I was anticipating a choppy sideways day, and that's exactly how it's unfolding up until this Holy Grail buy setup, off which we got a very nice rally. So even though you have an idea of what the market might do, it's important to trade the actual setups as they come in, and as such not miss out on a very good trade like this. So a very nice day for MTPredictor yesterday on the USE minis. The example we're showing here is using our MTP add-ons for NinjaTrader 8, and this all unfolded yesterday, which was January the 31st.